When did it happen? Where did it happen? When and where did it not happen? Once upon a time there was a woman who baked 5 pies, and when she took them out of the oven, they were so overbaked that the crust was too hard to eat. So she said to her daughter, "Daughter, put these pies over on the ledge. Leave them there a little, and they'll come again." She meant by this that the crust would become soft. But the girl said to herself, "Well, if they'll come again, I'll eat them now." And she set to work and ate them all, from first to last. Now when supper time came around, the woman said to her daughter, "Go get one of those pies. I am sure they have come again now." The girl went and looked, and there was nothing there but the plates. So she came back and she said, "No, mother, they have not come again." "None of them?" said the mother. "Not one of them," said the daughter. "Well, come again or not come again, I'll have one for supper." "But you can't if they haven't come again." "Oh, yes, I can. You go bring me the best one." "Best or worst, I have eaten them all," said the daughter, "so you can't have a single one till it's come again." The woman was completely beside herself. She gathered up her spinning, and she sat down by the door to spin. And as she spun, she sang, "My daughter has eaten 5 pies today. My daughter has eaten 5 pies today." In that very moment, the king himself was coming down the road, and he heard the woman singing. But what she was singing he couldn't tell, so he stopped and said, "What was that you were singing, woman?" The woman was ashamed that the king should know what her daughter had been doing, so she sang instead, "My daughter has spun 5 skeins today. My daughter has spun 5 skeins today." "My stars," said the king, "I had never heard of anyone who could do that. Now look here, since I want a wife, I'll marry your daughter. And for 11 months she shall have all the food she wants to eat, and all the clothes she wants to wear, and all the company she wants to keep. But the last month of the year she shall have to spin 5 skeins every day, and if she doesn't, I shall put her to death." "All right," said the woman, for she thought what a grand marriage that would be. And as for the 5 skeins, when the time came around, there'd be plenty of ways to get out of it, and most likely the king would have forgot the entire matter. And so they were married. And for 11 months, the girl had all the food she wanted to eat, and all the clothes she wanted to wear, and all the company she wanted to keep. But as the 12th month drew near, she began to think about those skeins, and to wonder if the king still had them in mind. He hadn't said a word about them, and so she thought he had quite forgot them. However, on the last day of the 11th month, the king took her into a room she had never seen before. And there was nothing in there but a spinning wheel and a stool. "And now, my dear," said the king, "you'll be shut in here tomorrow with some food and some flax. And if you haven't spun 5 skeins before the night time, your head will go off." And away he went about his affairs. Now the girl was quite frightened. She'd always been such a heedless gal, and she did not so much as know how to spin. And what would she do on the following morning with no one there to help her? She sat down on a stool in the kitchen, and oh, how she cried. However, all of a sudden, she heard a sort of knocking way down low upon the door. She got up and opened it, and what did she see but a strange little imp with a long tail. It looked up at her in a strange sort of way, and it said, "What are you crying for?" "What does that matter to you?" she said. "Never you mind," it said. "Just tell me what you're crying for." "It'll do me no good if I do," she said. "You don't know that," it said, and it began to twirl its tail. "Well, if it won't do me any good, it won't do me any harm either." And she went ahead and told it all about the pies and the skeins and everything. "Now here's what I'll do," said that little thing. "I'll come to your window every morning and take the flax, and then at night I'll bring it back all spun into skeins." "And what is your pay?" she said. It looked out of the corners of its eyes and it said, "I'll give you 3 guesses every night to guess my name, and if you haven't guessed it before the month is over, you shall be mine." Well, she thought surely she could guess its name by the end of the month, and so she said, "All right then, I accept." "Very well," it said, and twirling its tail, away it flew. And so the next day, the king took her into the room, and there was the flax and the day's food. "Now here's the flax," said the king, "and if it hasn't all been spun by evening, your head goes off." And away he went. The king had hardly gone away when she heard a knocking at the window. She got up and opened it, and surely enough, there was that odd little thing sitting on the ledge. "Where's the flax?" it said. "Here it is," she said, handing it the flax, and away it flew. Now when evening had come, she again heard a knocking at the window. She got up and opened it, and there was that odd little thing with 5 skeins of flax on its arms. "Here they are," it said, handing her the skeins. "Now, what's my name?" it said. "Is it Bill?" she said. "No, it isn't," it said, and it twirled its tail. "Is it Ned?" she said. "No, it isn't," it said, and it twirled its tail. "Well, is it Mark?" she said. "No, it isn't," it said, and twirling its tail even faster, away it flew. Now when the king came into the room, there were the 5 skeins of flax all ready for him. "I see I shall not have to put you to death tonight, my dear. You'll have your food and your flax again in the morning." And away he went. And so every day the food and the flax were brought in. And every day that odd little impet would come in the morning and then again in the evening. And all day, every day, the girl would try to think of names to say when it would come again in the evening, but never could she hit on the right one. And as it got towards the end of the month, that impet began to look so full of malice, and it twirled its tail faster and faster each time that she made a guess. Finally came the last day but one. When the impet came at night with the 5 skeins, it said, "What? Haven't you yet got my name? Well, is it Nicodemus, she said. No, it isn't, it said. And it twirled its tail. Is it Samuel, she said. No, it isn't, it said, and it twirled its tail. Well, could it be Methuselah? No, it's not that either. Then it looked at her with eyes like fiery coals, and it said, Woman, there's only tomorrow night, and then you shall be mine. And away it flew. Now surely did the poor girl feel horrid. However, in that very moment, she heard the king coming down the passageway. Coming into the room and seeing the 5 skeins, he said, Well, my dear, I am sure you'll have your skeins ready tomorrow night as well. And as I reckon I shall not have to put you to death, I'll have supper in here with you tonight. And so they brought in the supper and an extra stool, and the 2 of them sat down to eat. The king had hardly eaten but a mouthful when he stopped and began to laugh. What are you laughing at? She said. I was out hunting today, he said, and I came to a place in the woods I had never seen before. There was an old chalk pit there, and I heard a sort of humming. So I got off my horse, quietly approached the pit, and looked down inside. And what do you suppose I saw but the most curious little imp you have ever set eyes on? And what was it doing but spinning on a spinning wheel, just as spinning as fast as can be? And all the time it was twirling its tail, and as it spun, it sang, Nimmy, nimmy, not, my name is Tom Tit Tot, nimmy, nimmy, not, my name is Tom Tit Tot. Now when the girl heard that, she just about could have jumped out of her skin for joy. But she said not a word and continued to eat. And when their supper had ended, the king retired for the night. The next day, that imp looked so full of malice when it came for the flax. And as soon as it had got it, away it flew without a word. Now when evening had come, the girl, as always, heard a knocking at the window. But when she opened it, that thing came right down into the room. It was grinning from ear to ear, and oh, its tail was twirling around so fast. What's my name? It said, handing her the skeins. Well, is it Solomon? She said, pretending to be afraid. No, it isn't, it said, and it twirled its tail. Is it Zebedee? She said. No, it isn't, said the impet, laughing and twirling its tail around so fast you could hardly see it. Take your time, woman. One more guess, and you are mine. It stretched out its hands at her, just about to take her. Well, she took one step back, looked it straight in the eye, and laughed. Then she pointed her finger right at it and said, Nimmy, nimmy, not. Your name is Tom Tit Tot. Now, when it heard that, it let out an awful shriek, and away it flew into the night. And so at last, when the king came in, he found the task completed. And as for that odd little impet, it was never seen again. And if things haven't changed, they are still the same today.